wow. And look at Magnus's reaction. He's like, okay, you want to play a3? Well, essentially what Bertnyk says is that I'm giving you the white pieces now with this little move, a3, that I've played. Will it be helpful or not? I don't know, but we'll see. Bishop g7, we have the reti opening here. And Magnus now pauses a bit, castles, and white also castles calmly. And a5 played in order to stop the advance with b4, also trying to gain some space on the queen side. Bertnyk now thinking whether he should put his pawn on d4, pawn on c4, d3, e4. Many options here that are there in this position. And he slows down a bit and now plays pawn to d3. He wants to play his pawn to e4 here. And Magnus can play d5, c5, a4, knight c6, b5. He can start gaining space on the queen side if that's something that he would like to do. And Magnus plays pawn to a4. He clamps down on this structure here. It's now not easy to play b3 or b4 with the a4 pawn here. Pawn to e4, d6 played by black. And now Bertnyk has an option. He can go rook e1. He can play his knight to c3. He can also put his pawn on c4 and play knight c3, trying to put pressure on the a4 pawn this way. But look at the clock timing. He's playing this a bit too slowly. Is there pressure of facing Magnus Carlsen here? He has 1 minute 56 seconds. And Magnus has 2.5 minutes on the clock. Magnus has chosen the King's Indian setup completely here as black with this pawn on a4, which I think would be giving him a lot of positive energy to have the pawn there. And another thing which must be making him feel good is the fact that Bertnyk has completely frozen here. He's not making his move. e5 played by Bertnyk. That's a very interesting move. A very direct one at that. I can just take the pawn, knight e5, but you lose a very important central pawn. So, not so sure if this move makes a lot of sense. But as it often happens, when one player plays slow, the other player also slows down a bit. Magnus takes a bit of time. Knight takes e5. And now you want to get rid of the knight. So, knight fd7 play. And that's a very smart move because it opens up the bishop. It keeps the option to bring the other knight to c6. Bertnyk takes the knight on d7. Queen comes to d7. And once again, it's a little bit weird, but you don't want to be losing the b7 pawn. Knight to c6 in order to angle at the d4 square. Rook comes to e1, taking the semi-open file under control. And now Magnus can plant his knight to the d4 square. That would be something very cool. Also, there's a very cool idea to go rook a5 to h5, swinging the rook over from the a8 square to the h5 square. And that could be something very interesting as well. And you can see Magnus, he's so interested in this position that he's kind of taken a pawn in his hand, goes back in his chair and starts to think. But that means that his time is also coming close to Bertnyk's time. He goes rook a6. He stops one square before the rook could come to a5. Rook a6, maybe the idea is to go to b6, perhaps. Bishop e3. And Magnus jumps in with the knight. Knight to d4, a great square for the knight. You don't want to be giving up your bishop here on d4. And now queen comes. And now bishop h6 could be idea. e5 played right into the center of the position. If you take now on d4, I'll be taking back with the pawn. Black has a clear idea to play f5, f4, and also play c5. Just make the knight very strong on the d4 square. On the other hand, I think he takes on d4. Now Magnus's best reply is to take with the queen, but he takes with the pawn, and Bertnyk can go knight d5 with the idea of knight e7 and picking up this bishop. He goes knight e4. Okay, he's looking to fork here on the c5 square, the rook and the queen. And Magnus must play against it. He can play rook to b6. He can play queen b5. Magnus has 1 minute and few seconds. Bertnyk has 42 seconds. They've just made 16 moves. This is going to become a complete fight on the clock. Rook b6, attacking the b2 pawn. Rook b1 defends it. And now can we kick the knight away? No, he goes rook b5, controlling the 5th rank. Just taking away the c5 square from the knight. And pawn to h4, played by Bertnyk. I think you can go h6 with the idea of f5. That's what his plan is, so that now f5 does not allow knight coming into g5. And Bertnyk now goes queen to f4. He's looking at the f6 square. But can we go f5? Is that possible? f5 may be possible. He goes rook f5. Oof. What a move. Attacks the queen. The queen has to go back. And Bertnyk shakes his head. Moves his queen back to d2. He has 18 seconds. But that's the time control where he excels. He is a bullet specialist as well. And now Magnus thinking about his rook on f5. Does he want it there? He goes back rook b5. Queen f4. Bertnyk happy with the draw. Magnus says, no, sorry, I'm controlling the f6 square now. f5 coming up next. He's also eyeing the c7 pawn. The knight goes to d2. Pawn comes up to c6. Knight to c4. He brings his bishop out. And he was about to play his knight here to e5. Queen goes back to d2. And now Magnus's position starts to look a bit better. Does he want to go g5, f5 later? Start expanding on the king side. 18 seconds for Magnus, just 4 seconds for Bertnyk. And Magnus is not able to find a plan. He goes bd5. He's offering a trade of bishops. Queen f4 played with an 2 seconds on the clock. The clock bangings are going to start. g5 takes, pawn takes. He goes queen g4. Can he go f5 as well? He pushes f5. Queen h5. Bishop drops back. Queen e2 important. He goes queen h1. That's a mistake because g4 followed by f4. But he goes queen f6. And now Bertnyk is back in the game. Magnus goes g4. Bishop e4. Take care of the mate. He stops it. He blocks with the queen. Takes and knight d6. White is better. Knight comes to f5 now. Knight f5, knight e7 would be very strong. He takes on f7. Not a good idea. g4. Both players down to very few seconds on the clock. So there could be pieces tumbling off the board. But White's position clearly for choice. He gets rid of the b2 weakness here. Takes with the rook. Takes. And now rook a8 attacking the a pawn. a4 played. Magnus goes back with his bishop. Bishop enters in. And White's king can come in. The rook can get active. Black is really worse here. He goes rook a5. Check. King comes up. Bishop c8 attacking here. Also attacking on e6. Rook e5. Brilliant defense. Gives up the pawn. Magnus puts his bishop on b4. Another pawn for Bertnyk. Is it 2 pawns up? He looks at Magnus and says, well, Magnus, you're 2 pawns down. But Magnus says, well, I have an entire blockade here. This is bulletproof. Bulletproof, nothing to lose. Fire away, fire away. There's just no way that Bertnyk can make progress. You can see him trying, but Magnus has his bishops here. The king cannot come out. King e5, and now it dawns on Bertnyk that Magnus had things under control. Not letting the white king come to e4 at all. b4 gives up a pawn, takes it, brings the king back and offers a draw.